Okay, so a lot of guys say that they lose motivation to approach, even guys that are getting results. And that's interesting to me because what's happening is they don't understand motivation. They think that they have lost this energy to be motivated to then go and get results. And obviously, a part of them wants to get results. It wants to have relationships. It wants to have more sex with women and maybe even settle down with a relationship. But then there's also another part of guys, and they don't pay attention to this. They're also motivated to stay safe. They're also motivated to not approach. They're motivated to be comfortable, to not experience negative emotions. So far, so good, right? We understand that. And that's called ambivalence, this internal tug of war. So when guys say that they've lost motivation, it's not necessarily true. Their motivation is just split, and it creates this tension which they can't seem to overcome. The more that they pull in one direction, the other side will just pull back, right? So the more that you're actually trying, the more that you'll burn out harder. Guys that are doing 10 approaches, 20 approaches, 30 approaches a day eventually feel numb, like they've lost their excitement for human interaction. And why? Because now the outcome is what's driving them. And this is so cliche, we hear this all the time. The process is the outcome, not the result. You can't control the result. But the more that you ignore that, the more that you forget that and don't embody that, the harder you'll burn out, and then you'll just blame yourself for being just not feeling like it, not disciplined. Like maybe then it will trigger shame. So after a while, your approaches will just be these sort of robotic type of approaches. What a lot of guys that are doing 10, 20, 30 approaches a day, they eventually become robots. And women can tell. Women can tell, like, how many times have you done this today? Like, this isn't genuine. Women are like sharks. They can smell it. All right, they can tell. They can tell that you're lying, right? So you need to do this as a celebration of you, not something that you're obligated to do, right? This cannot be a little self-development project. I understand that guys, they want to get over their fear. They want to overcome this approach anxiety. But what happens is, if they don't address these underlying issues like shame and anxiety and where this resistance is actually coming from, all they do is double down on that. Because what happens? Eventually, they're going to start getting rejections. Maybe in the beginning, when you're enthusiastic, and this is what happened to me, for the first couple of weeks when I did this, when I first started going out in 2007, I was so excited to be like, fuck, I'm going to overcome. And I was so nervous, but I was also really excited. You know, I had both of these going on at the same time. I was terrified, and I remember the first time I got a phone number, it was like the biggest deal ever. But that wears off, right? That wears off because that was my motivation to get results. And it was a self-development project, right? That was the problem. So when that wears off and you become tolerant to that and you lose that excitement because the outcome has now become the focus, not the interaction, not the human being in front of you, that's unsustainable. So then what happens? You fall off and then you blame yourself. And then because you're chasing results, and most guys that get into cold approach and PUA especially have unresolved shame, unresolved trauma. So what happens? The outcome will now confirm the belief, the underlying, because shame is a belief, right? This is key to understand. Shame is the belief that I am not good enough as I am. So what do? Overcome it by doing more approaches. But then it's brutal out there, right? In 2007, it probably wasn't as bad as it is now. Me running around central London, people were pretty polite, actually. I remember like getting told, I did thousands of approaches. I only remember one like girl just being like, just fuck off, right? And I remember just being like, oh, that was, ow. Like, but again, I lost motivation because I lost the enthusiasm because now, because I was so focused on outcome and getting results, that it started to affect that shame. It started to trigger shame. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am a loser. Maybe this won't work for me. Even though I was occasionally getting results. Like I was occasionally, and I was doing hundreds of approaches a day. occasionally I started dating this really hot Russian girl, and then, a couple of weeks later I met this Polish girl, and I was like, wow. But the thing is, you've got to understand, if this is coming from a place of need, there's never enough, right? There's never ever enough. It's like a dopamine hit. You get tolerant, so you need more, and you need more, like watching porn, where you get more and more extreme, and then before you know it, you're watching fucking octopus porn or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that exists. Don't know. But you get the point, right? So this is why it's key to understand yourself. You've got to start looking and doing the inner work, right? And guys hate this. I get it. The guys that say I need to go out and just approach. And if you are watching this and that's one of you, and I understand, I don't believe, look, there's nothing wrong with when you see a beautiful woman and you still have that spark, you still have that curiosity, that enthusiasm. By all means, do it. It's amazing. And women, like I say, if you're doing those 10, 20, 30 approaches a day, they can tell. They're like, this is not genuine. So quality over quantity. Take breaks. Take weeks off. You will notice the potency in your approaches goes up, right? When you start to do it because you're looking forward to doing it, rather than it being this chore or something that you feel like you have to do, like some kind of obligation. A lot of the guys that take our programs, they equate progress with how many approaches they've done. They don't equate progress with understanding. Understanding is what leads to progress, not more and more action, right? More and more action without understanding just makes guys worse. And you have to understand what understanding is. Understanding isn't more knowledge, more logic, right? Understanding is being able to do something with a deeper level of awareness. The analogy being, if I read to you 100 books about lemons, you don't understand lemons until you've tasted lemons, right? That's understanding, knowledge versus understanding. When you understand yourself, that's progress. And then you start to realize you don't need to do it, all right? The need to do it creates neediness, which causes all of these women to be like, thanks, but no thanks. You get all of these phone numbers, they all flake, and you can't figure out why, because you're needy. You're needy. That's why. They sense it, right? They sense that it matters to you. If it matters to you, that's neediness. And it's not that deep, guys, right? You don't need to analyze this too much. Women don't want to feel pressure. They don't want any of that. They feel like they have to make a decision. That's pressure. If you're needy, you're putting the onus and the pressure on the woman. They don't want that. They want a leader, right? They want a guy who truly believes, take it or leave it. Like, this doesn't matter to me. And that doesn't come, this is where it gets tricky, because guys believe that indifference. So a lot of these guys that are doing all of these videos where they do hundreds of approaches. I saw one guy the other day, I think his name's like, and he said, yeah, I put in the reps. I put in the work, bro. And look, don't get me wrong, he's great. Like, he's done a lot of, he's gone out a lot, but he's just numb. That's not what we want. You want to feel it, right? There's nothing wrong with being afraid. He's still afraid. He's just numbed himself. Now, I don't know him. This is not like an attack video. If he watches this, cool. I'm sure I'll bump into him at some point. And he's worked really hard. Great. And he's probably helping a lot of guys again. But again, you don't want to be numbing yourself. That's the problem. A lot of guys numb themselves and they just do day game. They think then they need to overcome that. Right? That's not what you want. Indifference isn't what I'm talking about. Just being okay with her saying yes or no. Because you have other stuff going on in your life. You're not someone that's just running around doing day game. That's the point. You need to be a man of substance. And women can tell. Right? Women can tell. And yeah, okay, it could be that you just numb yourself, don't feel anything, but that will have repercussions. And that's what happens to a lot of guys that get stuck in this hamster wheel of chasing dopamine, this hedonistic wheel of just running around. And then one day they just can't do it anymore, even if they're getting results. And I've seen this happen so many times. So if this is maybe change the way you think about cold approach, day game, all of this stuff, check out the link below and we can have a conversation. go deeper on this, and subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Joe, and yeah, next time. Goodbye.